Okay, so let's fast forward 6 months from now, and we're following this Wells Fargo story along. Uh, what are the risks to this idea here? What are the things that you're keeping your eye on that'll give you signals, that'll provide signals as to whether they're doing the right things, or still not quite there yet?
Well, I mean, it's important, first of all, to point out that the pandemic is still a fluid situation. That's the number one risk here.
Yeah,
When I say buy a great stock for 2021, I still think Wells Fargo is going to be a great stock for the long term, regardless.
sure.
But as far as 2021, the pandemic is still a big risk. With Wells Fargo and pretty much every other reopening stock, there's still a lot of uncertainty priced in when it comes to the timetable.
Yeah,
I mean, you and I are relatively healthy adults. It could be March before we can get a vaccine. It could be September. We don't know.
yeah,
And then once vaccines are widely available, when will the actual pandemic die down to the point where we can move about the country freely?
yeah,
We don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty here. If it turns out to be March, that's going to be a fantastic catalyst for Wells Fargo. If it turns out to be September, not so much. But
yeah.
I'm thinking it's going to be somewhere in the middle of there. But that's one big risk. There's unemployment risk is a big one. If people actually end up having trouble paying their bills, I mentioned that their default rate hasn't really ticked up much, but that's third quarter. That was when most of the stimulus was still working its way through the system, when case numbers weren't spiking out of control.
Yeah.
So there could be some long-tailed effects in the fourth quarter and first quarter that could eat up a lot of the reserves I was talking about. So that's a potential hole in the thesis. So there are some things that can go wrong here. It's important. I mean, there's no such thing as a no-brainer in investing, and that's especially true here. I mean, I think Wells Fargo in the 20s, like it is right now, is a pretty big no-brainer. But and then there's always the overall risk in the banking industry of customers leaving, not for other banks or because of Wells Fargo's scandals, but leaving for the online competitors that we're seeing pop up. Pretty much
Yeah.
everybody's starting a bank now. Square's starting a bank. I mean, there's a bunch of options. If you want a higher interest rate, there's options. They're doing a better job of replicating a checking account online than they were doing just a few years ago. There have been
Yeah.
high yield savings accounts, but checking accounts have been tough to replicate, and so that's a big risk just in the industry in general. That's worth keeping an eye on.